Okay, so I figure I might as well go ahead and do one more of these. And since I got like a big pile of stuff I gotta work through, might as well get this out of the way. And this is Marvel Legends Spider Man. But it's not just any Spider Man, it's the Japanese Spider Man from the live action 1970s Spider Man television show that was made exclusively for Japan. How about that? I was a big fan of this show when it finally appeared here in the United States. They actually had it streaming on the Marvel website for a long time. So it might be on like Disney Plus or something now. Who knows? I don't know. If not, they should put it on there because that's just money lying on the table. I should look into that and see if it's on Disney Plus because I would totally watch it again. So unfortunately, it's in these new Marvel Legends boxes, which to me just look cheap as hell. Like I really miss the window being on there. It just aesthetically is not as appealing as as it is with the window being on there. Although it does have like some really nice artwork on there, some illustrations of the Japanese Spider-Man, who, mostly his costume just looks like what you think of Spider-Man's costume is looking like. He's just got this big bulky web shooter device on his arm. I forget what they call that specifically in the Japanese version, but Japanese Spider-Man is a little bit different from American Spider-Man. Instead of a high school student who got bitten by a radioactive spider, he was a motorcycle racer who got his powers given to him by aliens. And he also has a spider car, which I believe is called the Spider Machine, and a giant robot named Leopardon. So, why a spider character has a leopard themed robot, I don't know. Maybe they just thought leopard was a cool English language word and they wanted to use it for Spider Man's robot. So, but I really like this illustration here on the side. That's really cool. So Spider-Man would leap into the screen and announce himself as an emissary of hell, Spider-Man. And I'm like, wow, the Japanese have a little bit of a different view on Spider-Man than us Americans, huh? So, but it was made specifically for the Japanese market, and as far as they knew, it was never going to appear here in the United States, and Americans would never know about it. So Marvel was like, "Yeah, do whatever you want to with them. It's cool." Counts their money. So, but of course, eventually word did get out about uh, the Japanese take on the web slinger, and we were all very intrigued. And eventually, like I said, it did get the entire series was streamed over here on the Marvel website. So we Americans finally got a chance to watch it, and I highly enjoyed it. I think it's probably my favorite live action version of Spider Man, to be honest. And for those of you who have never seen or heard of the Amazing Spider-Man in his Japanese form, and this costume still looks somewhat familiar to you, it's the same costume basically that was used for public appearances over here in the United States, and also used on the Nicholas Hammond television series. Although they changed the shape of the eye holes a little bit on that version, but I believe that Marvel had these costumes made from a costume maker in New York City, and they probably just had them shipped over to Japan so they could use on the show. So we open it up, and we've got this weird cardboard sled with this figure in the paper bag. Uh, None of this packaging is too appealing to me. I really don't like the paper packaging. Peter Parker and his paper packaging. He wasn't actually called Peter Parker in the Japanese show. I forget what the character's name was. But he was a Japanese character in the Japanese show, so he had a Japanese name. So there we have the web or spider string, as they called it on that show. And I believe all of this webbing is reused from various Spider-Man figures. There we have another little piece of web, and I guess you can lay that on top of your bad guy figures that have been defeated. So Spider-Man webbed them up. And we've got 2 solid fist hands. And there's not like the kind of, Spider-Man web shooting hand in this, because I don't think he did that on the show. So it really wouldn't make any sense if they had it. But he's got 2 solid fists. And it's like one more piece of web. I don't think there's anything else in here, but it's kind of hard to tell since it's like opaque, like barely translucent paper. And one more piece of web. All right, let's see if we. How do I even get him out of here? Tear this thing open. It's just a good thing I'm not a mint in box collector, because like with these, like you can't even really see the figure if it's in the box. So what would even be the point of collecting mint in box? These figures are only worth something to somebody like me that actually opens stuff. And there we got Spider-Man out of the package. And I gotta say, I really like the coloring on this figure. The colors are nice and vibrant. It's a really bright red and this really deep blue, and the contrast on him is great. And man, look at the spider emblem on the front. They don't draw spiders like that anymore, where it barely even looks like a spider. It's got 8 legs. It's a spider in like an academic sense, I guess. But but it's not like, the McFarlane ones where it looks really spidery. This is old school Spider-Man. This is like back in the 70s. They put 8 legs on him. That should be good enough. Man, these elbows are really stiff. Oh, I do not feel comfortable trying to move them. That is definitely a job for the hair dryer. So elbow or the knee, that one seems, the knees seem fine. I mean, this one's tight as hell. There we go. I think I got it though. Oh, don't ever force it. Don't ever force it. You never want to force these joints, because that's how you wind up with broken joints. But sometimes you can be gentle and coax it. And that's what I'm trying to do right now. All right, I don't like to do this, but we're going to have to whip out the hairdryer, which somehow got wrapped around the arm of my chair here. Sorry about this, folks. All right, let's see if that helped. Ooh, it's still nice and stiff. But I got it. See it? There we go. Can we get him in that cool crossed arm pose? He does not have butterfly joints. That's disappointing. If he had butterfly joints, I could probably get him. I could probably get him into that crossed arm pose, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it without it. But we'll see. We'll make sure we got the web shooter in front, because they'd want to show that off. It looks like that's about as good as I'm going to be able to get it. I don't know why they decided not to have butterfly joints on this. It does seem to me like this might be reused from the Mr. Fantastic body. The same one that was like the vintage Mr. Fantastic. It's got like that sort of feel to it. I don't know whether it is or not. I don't have it here with you to compare. But it does look kind of similar in terms of the sculpt. Like that they might have reused some of that. That's the kind of pose I'm used to seeing from him on the show. If you watch the opening credits, he does this whole thing. That might be how I wind up having him posed on the shelf. So the web shooter, as I recall, oh yeah, there it is. It actually has like text on it, and I don't know if you can really see it on camera, and I don't know if it's even legible, and to my naked eye, but I think it is, where it actually says Spider-Man on the web shooter. Like actually has the word Spider-Man written out in English on the web shooter. That is some nice attention to detail. So and his web shooter could do more than just a web shooter on the Japanese show. He could also use it to call his robot or his car. And also, when he was in his civilian identity, he stored his costume in his web shooter. So when he would turn into Spider Man, kind of like how the Power Rangers had their belt buckle and they would turn into a Power Ranger that way, Spider Man would, in his civilian identity, he would kind of, you know, eject the costume out of the web shooter, and it would come flying out and then kind of settle on him. And they had to do this in 1970s special effects, so it wasn't really that realistic or convincing or whatever. But kids were watching it; they didn't care. And then he'd have to reach to the back of his costume, and the zipper was along the back. Reach back there and zip it up himself, which I always thought was really funny. Is that yeah, the costume will automatically just kind of wrap itself around him, and he's wearing the costume, but he's got to zip it up himself. So it's pretty accurate to how the costume was on the show, where it was basically just kind of red and blue spandex, and it had the webs kind of screen printed on there, and this is all just kind of unlike a lot of the more modern Spider-Man figures where they actually sculpt in the webbing. This one is just all kind of painted on, and that to me adds to the old school costume appeal to it. I always felt like this was actually the best live action Spider-Man costume because it looked like something Peter Parker could have actually made himself. I don't buy Peter Parker making the Tobey Maguire costume himself. That's just too fancy and involved. Sorry. And of course, in the MCU, like Tony Stark made all of his outfits, so he didn't really need it to look it should look kind of crappy. Spider-Man's costume should have kind of a homemade quality to it. And this does have like a homemade sort of quality to it, even though like I said, in the Japanese version, it actually came from aliens, so they got an excuse to make the costume look good in that version. But they didn't take it. They just used the same costume that, like I said, Marvel did it for public appearances and used it on the American television show where Peter Parker would have made it himself. But you can look at it and see how, even though this is a solid piece of plastic here, this is not a separate piece where the neck meets the shoulder or anything like that. But you can see where the web pattern kind of breaks up a little bit at that area, because in the costume that they made, that was where it broke up. It had like a seam there, so the webbing didn't connect exactly. That was where the neck was stitched onto the collar and everything like that. And the head sculpt is really good. It's got the that kind of distinct eye shape that came with the Japanese Spider-Man mask. And they even got some of the wrinkling into it where it looks like a guy wearing a fabric mask. This is a great Spider-Man action figure. And I don't just mean that as a representation of the specific live action Japanese Spider-Man television show, which of course it nails that entirely. But even if you were unfamiliar with the show, this is a great Spider-Man action figure. If you just wanted like a comic book accurate Spider-Man action figure, to me this fits that bill too. Like as far as being like a Silver Age kind of Spider-Man, he's got like that Steve Ditko kind of feel to him also, which I really enjoy. In fact, if you wanted like a pretty accurate Steve Ditko Spider-Man, you could just buy this one, and just since the hands are removable and this web shooter is a separate piece, you can take that off entirely. So now he's just straight up wearing a comic book Spider-Man costume. I took off the thing that was like the most distinctive as far as the Japanese version. So to me, this is like a perfect classic Spider-Man. And It's like I said, it doesn't have the butterfly joints, and it doesn't have like the separate neck articulation. Maybe it's not quite as well articulated as some of the other Spider-Man figures, but other than that, he's great. This is a fantastic Spider-Man figure. I'm glad I bought him. It's with Spider-Man, he's a character that's had so many figures made of him over the years. It's kind of hard for me to justify buying any new Spider-Man action figure. I tend to look at the last one I bought and be like, that Spider-Man is really good. I don't think I need to replace him at this point until they come up with something that knocks my socks off, and I gotta have him. So this was one that I definitely felt like was worth picking up because it's a specific version of Spider-Man that I've never had in an action figure before. I know they've made a lot of action figures of them actually over in Japan, but those are kind of expensive to get imported over here, so I never really thought about it that much. But when I saw that Hasbro was actually going to make a figure of Japanese Spider-Man, I knew that I had to have him. Like it would just was it just was something that I was absolutely going to want to have in my collection, and now I've got him, and I'm glad I do. So I would highly recommend this figure to anybody who collects Spider-Man action figures. He's definitely worth having as part of your collection. And that's pretty much it for this episode. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe and all the fun YouTube stuff down below. Let me know what you think about the Japanese Spider-Man action figure and the Japanese Spider-Man show. Did you have a chance to watch it on the Marvel website when it was up there? Maybe it's still up there for all I know. I haven't seen it in so long. Maybe it's on Disney Plus. I should check and see if it is. If I was running Disney Plus, I would have it on there. Then again, I would have had the Guy Williams Zorro on there from the jump also. So I guess I don't know how to run a streaming website then. Anyway, we'll talk to you next time. Bye.